We are live. What's up? Happy day. Almost said Happy New Year. What the heck? How are we today? What's going on? So happy to be here. We are diving into Act One today. It's going to be spectacular. So have a beautiful, beautiful time. We're going to jump right in. Let's talk about Act One, shall we? Are you excited? I'm excited. So let me see if I can see your comments. We're going to walk through. We have a handout and everything. It's very exciting. Hang on. And we have a handout that you can get if you just go to hollywoodgatekeepers.com/gatekeeper, and you can follow along if you like. I'm typing that in as we speak here. So you can just dive on into that handout if you'd like to see that. And this will is something that you can follow along as we walk through. I'm also going to share my screen so that you can see it. So we love doing these sessions. We do these sessions where we can just dive into a topic online and then give you information about whatever we're going to talk about, and then you can leave your comments and you can get the handout and you can like learn more about being a reader. It's all free and we do this all the time and we have so much fun when we're doing this. So we're going to walk through Act One for you today, and super excited that you're here. I see people coming in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So excited to have you here. We're going to dive into Act One. It's a live training, and you can continue wherever you're watching this. We're streaming to a couple of different places. It will also live here, so you can watch the replay here as well. So we're going to dive in. The thing about Act One, you hear a lot of people talk about, we're always coming here at Hollywood Gatekeepers. For those of you that are new to us, we analyze screenplays. That is our deal. We are readers. We analyze screenplays for either producers that are looking for the next big thing, what they want to produce, or maybe they already have a project, they want some feedback, so they hire us to take a look at it to give them feedback. So that's what we do for producers. For writers, we will help a writer get that screenplay together so that they can submit it to festivals or look for an agent, or you can even as a writer get a reader to give you a coverage so that then you can give the coverage to an agent and say, hey, you don't have to read the whole screenplay. Here's a coverage of it. It tells you all about it. And if you do a coverage for a writer for that purpose, you always want to do a coverage that's always very honest. You're not going to just say, this screenplay is great. You're going to still say like what needs improvement. And so when you do get your coverage back, you say to the agent, here's a coverage. Hopefully it'll be a positive coverage. If not, go back and work on the screenplay, get it covered again until you do have a positive coverage. And then you can take that to an agent and say, but there should, even in a positive coverage, there will probably be notes about what can improve. And then you say to the agent, here's the coverage that I got. As you can see, it has a few notes. I've fixed those things. So you can just say, I've already fixed it, but if it's generally a positive coverage, it shows that you're working on your own, which agents love. So you're not just sitting around waiting for the agent to do the work for you. So let's talk about Act One, because that is the thing that pulls people in, right? So you want to pull people into that Act One. A lot of people say it's your first 10 pages that are the most important. And there's some truth to that. Although as a reader, I always read every single page. So there are readers that will do what they call a 10-30 or 30-10, and that means that they will read a screenplay, and then if the first 10 pages don't grab them, right out the gate, that they won't read the entire thing. But every reader that I know that will read a screenplay, and takes it seriously, all the readers that I know that people use all the time, they read the entire thing. I really feel passionately that there are so many people in this world that want to write a screenplay. If someone actually has the wherewithal to sit down and actually write it, I can take the time to actually read it. That's my opinion about being a reader. It's a little tangent that I go on sometimes because I feel pretty passionately about that as readers, we should read the screenplay. So it is true that those first 10 pages do need to grab the reader. And as a reader, when I have a lot of projects that I want to look at, when I pull up a screenplay and I go to read it and those first 10 pages aren't very compelling, I might put that one down and pick up a different one because I have so many I need to get through that I'm going to try to pick the one that I think will be the one that the producer will, really want. Everyone wants these screenplays to be good. Everyone wants them. It's a great grammar there. Everyone wants the screenplay to move forward. We are all looking for the next best thing. We really do. We want the screenplay to be good. So I'm going to be looking for the one that, is going to be the one. Like we are looking for the one for sure. So you want those first few pages to really pull people in so that they will, categorize what they read next by the one that's the most compelling. And so that is one reason. if there are readers that don't read everything all the way through, that could be another reason. Although that's not something that I experience. And the readers that I know that are spectacular and our students in our programs, they don't do that. They read the entire thing, but they still are going to choose which one to read next. And so they're going to pick the one that's the most compelling. So you definitely, those first 10 pages are very, very, very important. So you want to be sure that you pull them in with those pages. One of the main ways to do this is to be very decisive about what you're going to write about to begin with. You don't Some people like to do an outline, and we have trainings in here that you can see about how to do an outline. Some people like to just free flow. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Your own process is your own process. You're a grown adult, you can make that choice. But if you're not decisive, and if you start with not even knowing what genre you're going to be in, you kind of have a general idea of your story and you're going to see where it goes. That'll You can do that, and that's a fun project. It'll take you longer, and it usually isn't as compelling as someone who knows what they want to say, knows what their genre is, knows what they're going to do. And so when you're first starting out and you want to write your screenplay, I highly recommend that you write what you love. You write the genre that you like to watch. You like the thing that, covet what you like what, they always say, write what you know. It doesn't necessarily have to be a story from your life, but something that inspires you. For one, you're going to spend hours and hours and hours and hours looking at this page. So you want to make sure it's something that inspires you. And so when you go in and you pick a genre that you like. Don't write something because you think it's going to be a big bestseller, or it's big, you're trying to write for a market. You need to write for your own. You can think about those things, but if that's where you live, you're going to have a really hard time centering yourself and getting connected to your characters. So the more that you can write in a genre that you love, and we put in this handout, once you get the handout, we put in this handout a bunch of different genres and what they kind of, the form that they take. So we categorize genres in two main root genres: comedy, tragedy. Pretty straight ahead, right? And then we go into what we call root genres. We made this up to help people organize their thoughts about genre. So the form genres tend to, it's the form of the movie. So a horror has a different kind of form to it than a romantic comedy, for instance, or a thriller or an action adventure. They have different sensibilities when you pick that genre. And one of the main things that I see with writers that struggle, or screenplays that meander, is that the genre isn't specific. So someone is writing along and they have this like slasher film and people are getting their heads chopped off. Stuff's going down, and then a spaceship lands and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, now we're a sci-fi. And then the cowboy comes right in. I mean, I'm being really ridiculous in terms of like massive, but you see this a lot where it jumps genres, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, I thought this was this kind of film and now it's this kind of film. You can do that. You can mash genres together for sure. Pride and Prejudice and zombies, like you can mash genres up. I actually like that film. So you can mash genres. You can do that as long as it's very intentional and you're still within the format of what you're doing. And I know that sometimes all of these rules can be like, I just want to write. Why does it have to be, you're quenching my creativity, blah, blah. It can have that feeling to it. But the thing is there's just there's so many screenplays, there's so many things that we're reading and trying to decide, that the more that you can be decisive and stay within a certain umbrella at first, especially when you're first starting out, you'll just get your foot in the door a little bit faster. Then you can play, you can have your pet project that's all over the place and has a bajillion genres. You can do all of that. We don't want to quelch your creativity. What we want to do is provide you a path, a success path, where these steps will kind of get you there, so that then you can have the freedom to do whatever you want. And also within that, I also want to say that some people think that this free form idea, that structure, that kind of thing, like really limits your creativity. And I see this with artists in general all the time, of like, I'm not going to make a schedule because I just want to be in the flow and whatever. It's I don't mean to mock it, really, because I'm like this. So this is me. Like, I don't want to interrupt my flow, but what I found, so I'll just talk about myself, so it doesn't seem like I'm mocking anyone, because I can mock myself all day long. So I'm just going to do it. But when I started to put a structure together in my life and like decided, okay, when we're artists, we tend to set our own schedules. When you're readers, absolutely, you should set your own schedule. So when I started setting my own schedule and deciding, I'm going to do this for this part of the day, this, and I got more structured, I got so much, I had so much more room for creativity, because I didn't have to think about, should I eat now, or should should I do this, or should I do that? Should I go here? Should I go, should I work out now, or should I write? And always, where does writing go? No, I'll work out. Just so weird, right? But you take out that decision making process, and then all of that time that you spent waffling about what you were going to do is now focused on what you're actually doing. So the same is true when you go to sit down and write your screenplay. The more that you can be succinct in your life, and we always talk about this, how you run your life and how you write your screenplay, they go hand in hand. So the more you can be succinct in that way, and the more you're succinct in your screenplay, the more you have room for creativity. The more you follow these structures, the more then you can go. You don't have to worry about whether the screenplay is working because you're structurally you're sound. And then you can play all day long on top. So that's why we're giving you some of this structure. A little bit of a tangent there, but I think it's important to really make some decisions about what genre do you want to have. And then the next thing that that enters into is, what is the tone? What are the themes that you want to have in your screenplay? Is there a message you want to get across? Is there something you really, really want to say? Not every film needs to be a message film. Thank you. You've been wearing the same shirt for months. Well, you don't have to decide what shirt to put on. And I think the pandemic both helped and hurt with that, right? Because the pandemic, like so many writers were, well, I can't write my screenplay because I'm so busy. If I just had a month off, if I just, didn't have to go so many places, and then suddenly it was like, I didn't have to take my kids to all these different sporting things and whatever. And all of a sudden it was like, "Arr." And then were screenplays getting done? I mean, I did one. I'm actually going to screen pretty soon, but it's like, yes, that happens, but it's like we suddenly realize, oh, wait a minute, there are things that we can do with this time, right? So when you make these decisions about what you what's making me cracking me up. I'm wearing the same shirt for a month. It's making me laugh. So as you make these decisions, within your screenplay of that structure, within your life of that structure, it just actually frees you up. So then as you're kind of deciding, I want to be in this genre, then it's like, what is the tone? So the tone's a little bit different. So you can have a horror film that has lots of varying tones. A horror film can be just straight ahead. Psycho has I was going to say straight ahead slasher. It can be Saw, which has a, horrific, terror, like it has a very specific tone, right? As opposed to Psycho. That's a much different tone than Saw, right? Both horror films. So it's like you have a very specific tone. Shaun of the Dead is a horror film. It's a horror comedy. So it's like you have, different tones within your genre. So what kind of tone do you want, and what kind of themes do you have themes? Even in all films have themes. They usually have themes of the most common ones are themes of loyalty, themes of family, things of love, themes of self-loathing or self-respect. So flip side of those, they have to do with accomplishment often is a theme, or glory of some kind, because usually the themes in films are big, right? Because they're big stories. Otherwise they'd be boring. That's what we go to the movies to watch, these big stories. So these themes are often, they seem life and death, but they don't necessarily have to be life and death. And I always use the example of Whiplash was a really great film that feels like life and death stakes. It's not like his life is not in danger. He's not hanging off a cliff, but it sure feels like he is. And that's because the themes in there are so strong and especially for performers or anyone who's had that kind of coach, like that theme of wanting and desire is such a huge theme in Whiplash. And for all the characters, the desire to be the best, and the desire, good job, or the, two worst words in the English language. Like it's that desire to be better than. And I mean, that conflict is really laid out well in that film. So as you figure out what is your genre, what is your theme, your moral message, what is your hook, and the hook is generally like what the log line would be, or what are we going to put in the trailer? What is the thing? Quiet Place, they're quiet. Pretty simple hook, right? The more simple the hook is, the bigger the concept, and that's what high concept refers to, is a hook that we all immediately get. That's called a high concept film, meaning like we understand A Quiet Place just like that. We don't really have to think about it. And then there's things underneath that. Get Out, we get the hook of that, of like he needs to get out. We know this, but we don't know what, which is really great, right? It's very layered, and there's all kinds of, themes in that movie for sure. So you want to make sure you don't need to hit people over the head with a message. You can if you want. If you really have a message you want to get out there, I recommend you do it in this, as subtle fashion as possible. But that's the thing that you're going to pull people in with. And so as you write, your tone, the way that you describe your characters, the way that you describe their world, that's going to set up your tone. And so you need to pick adjectives that fit within your tone, right? And you're going to set that up. So the other thing that happens in that first 20 to 30 pages, which is how long Act One should be, is you're going to introduce your protagonist. So typically, not always, but typically that protagonist is introduced right out the gate in the first like 10 pages, 10 pages, page one often. Like the protagonist is often like right out the gate. We see that sometimes, and it depends on the genre, thriller, action, horror, there's often there's some sort of setup where you see a murder or something that doesn't have the protagonist, but right away that's just setting up, something horrific happens, and then the next thing we see the protagonist, and we know that person's going to have to deal with whatever we just saw. So, but your protagonist, we meet them right away, and with those first 10 pages, you're setting up their world. For the first like 5-10 pages, you're seeing who this person is, and you're seeing the environment in which they live. And then something happens. The big thing happens. Either internally, the character has a major shift. Jerry Maguire writes a manifesto, or externally, something happens and there's a tornado and Dorothy gets whisked away. Like something happens that changes the world. And that is the inciting incident. And then for the next few pages that round out Act One, the protagonist is responding to whatever that was. Typically, in the hero's journey, they're refusing the call to action. They're saying, I don't believe this. This isn't true. This isn't happening. No, 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 no. Typically, that's where they're coming from. And they're suffering from the fallout of the decision that we made. Jerry Maguire's like, oh, now I don't have a job. She leaves with him and takes her fish tank, and like she has nothing. And it's like, oh, geez, what have I done? Like it's like suddenly, it's like buyer's remorse, settles in, and they have a moment of uh-oh. And then Act Two ends, Act Two begins and Act One ends when they make the decision to accept the call. So when it's like, okay, here's my new world, let's take action on this. We're going to go ahead and, we're going to fight the shark. We're going to go ahead and see, dive in and take care of business here. And that's the whole of Act One. It has its own arc of here's our protagonist, here's our conflict. Oh no, oh no, oh no, what are we going to do? Okay, let's have action. So it has its own arc within that. It is also the first arc of the bigger arc of the whole thing, right? So yes, it's very important. I think every single page in a screenplay is, utterly important, of course. But people tend to focus on Act One quite a bit. I think Act Three sometimes, or kind of from the point of no return on, kind of doesn't get its due. Like a lot of the times the screenplay will meander towards the end, or it has a saggy middle because so many people focus on Act One. But as you're starting out and you're writing your screenplay, or as you're starting out as a reader and you're reading a screenplay, these are the things to look for. Does it do these things? Does it establish the character's values? Does it hook people and show you that our person is in some sort of peril or taking some kind of action? Does it introduce significant relationships? That's the other thing that will happen Act One. You'll meet either a sidekick or a love interest, or sometimes the villain, sometimes not. Sometimes they come in a little bit later. Sometimes they're in the first 5 pages and they're the one that sparks the inciting incident. You never know. Sometimes they're snuck in there, like Wizard of Oz. We meet the Wicked Witch when she's on the bicycle. We meet her as she's, trying to get Toto. She's not the Wicked Witch yet, but she's laying some foundation for sure, right? So we can meet that villain, and sometimes they come in much later, as the story progresses. We know there's a villain, but we haven't met them yet. So there's different ways you can handle villains, but definitely there's some side characters that are introduced. Sometimes an entire subplot can be introduced in Act One. As long as that subplot doesn't run away with your story, that's something to always consider. That's the supporting of Act One. Subplots and side characters are solely there to support the protagonist. So you want to make sure that you're kind of seeding backstory to this protagonist. Were they married before? Were they single? Do they have a terrible childhood, a rough child? Are they, or we're getting it by the things that the characters does. It doesn't have to be a flashback. It doesn't have to be a monologue of this is where it came from, but we want to make sure that as a writer, what that backstory is, even if you don't include it in the actual text. Backstory can actually be peppered out quite a bit in Act Two, but it is that idea of knowing what it is so that you can make sure that it's underlying everything. And you're creating that main objection of objective, not objection. You're creating the main, well, objections too, but you're creating their motivation, their main thing of what is their motivation? What is it that they want to do? What is that protagonist objective? What are they after? What do they want? Dorothy wants to get home. We know what her objective is when she heads out, right? So you want to make sure that you include all of that. So as you do all of this, you're introducing kind of the first inner conflict. You're also introducing an outer conflict. A lot is happening, right? So it's really good to sort of outline this or just go for it and write it, but then go back and make sure these elements are in there. You can use this handout. And then also for you readers out there, you can use this handout to make sure that the Act One has these things. This should all happen again, like between page 20 and 30 is when we move into Act Two. Let me just check to see if you have any questions along the way. Yeah, you know change is coming and you're like, no. Yeah, so definitely. Yeah, really great comments, you guys. Still laughing at them. We're in the same shirt for months. So yeah, so that's your general, feel for the whole of Act One. So let me know if you have any questions about it. But basically, it's getting that protagonist, introducing them in a really compelling way. The more unique that you can, they're more unique. That's not a thing. If you can make it unique, it's going to be much better, of course. But even if it's not that unique, like how many times have we seen a character wake up in the beginning minutes of a movie? That's so common, but it says so much about them, right? How they're sleeping, what their bed looks like, what their alarm is, how they treat that alarm. Do they get up easily? Do they put the pillow over their head? How do they wake up is such a big character moment. Like we really get it, right? So that's why a lot of films start like that. Plus a lot of films start at the beginning of the day. Like that's just a normal, natural way to start things, right? I think that films that start in the middle of some scenario, like Defending Your Life is one that I use as an example. I absolutely love the way that movie, it starts in the middle of his retirement party. He's like saying thank you. So we don't have to see the retirement. We don't have to see it. We get it. He's saying, and then he takes his, he takes his Barbra Streisand CD and starts driving, listening to Something's Coming, Something's Good. It's so for Alfred Brooks. And James Brooks. It's so great. And it sets him up as I'm retiring, something's coming. I'm left this job. Like you see his world so beautifully. People were like, he clearly was loved in his current job. And it was just like, and then he gets a bus. And it's like inciting incident. And then it's so beautifully still sort of stays in the middle because it never really explains what happened or where he is, but we just through what he sees, we slowly piece together what's going on with him as he slowly pieces it together. Really brilliantly done. Highly recommend that you look at that in terms of how to start a movie. It's one of the best, I think, beginnings of a movie out there. I love it when a movie starts like that and you just go, whoa, that first few minutes. It's so great when you're watching a movie. It's even better when you're reading it and you're like, what? And you start turning the pages, right? It's so good when that happens. So highly recommend that you be sort of relentless in a way in those first few pages. Make it so that they can't put it down. They have to know what's going to happen next. And the way that you do that is by being decisive and knowing where you're headed, knowing what you want, knowing where you're headed, knowing your genre, making clear choices and sticking to that. Try to, as best as possible, to not suffer from what I call squirrel syndrome, where it's like, oh, it'd be cool if I did that, or it'd be cool if we added this. When you do all of that, your story meanders and it's not as compelling. And so if this is making sense to you and you love this, stick with this channel or subscribe to our YouTube channel, stay in the Facebook group. We do all kinds of trainings. This training will live wherever you're watching it right now so that you can go back, you can look at the handout, you can go back, use the handout, use the training, see how you're doing, get your screenplay together, get your Act One together. You can look around too on when you get your handout at hollywoodgatekeepers.com/gatekeeper. You'll see on that page that there's all kinds of handouts there. And that's what we're all about. We are there to make that story better so that we can support that writer and the writer can get our notes and be like, oh, you get me. You so get me. And we're going to make my screenplay so much better because of your notes. And the producer will say, oh my gosh, you got it. You totally get it. You're doing, I don't have to do so much because what you have done has really eased my plate. Like I can rely on you to give me a coverage that's really going to be solid. I can look at your coverage. I don't have to read every single screenplay. I can then pick the screenplays that I want to read based on your coverage. So really, important on both levels. And you're there, you have these tools so that you can really be that center for that writer. That's why we're here. We can make sure that they're not squirreling off. And just quickly, I want you to watch also 5-Year Engagement has a really good example of a subplot. Subplots should also be focusing on that character, helping support that character through. And so I hope this was helpful. We like to do these kind of one-off trainings that aren't too long so that you can dive in, create a spectacular act one, or help a writer create a spectacular act one, or help a producer find a spectacular act one. That's our job as readers. And we love it. We enjoy it. We love to hear your feedback, and we'll see you at the next one. Have a beautiful, lovely day. We'll talk to you soon.